All right. It looks like I'm live. So, everybody, um, I am on air with Our Cat's Gay.
Oh,
Um, and we are on my channel. Hold on, I gotta go and open up a watch link. Uh, okay. La 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 la. Watching. Okay, so I'm on air with our Cat's Gay, who has made a number of appearances on my channel and especially on my secondary channel. And he's somebody that I actually really like the content of because he's maybe the most similar to my channel in terms of what he's actually doing out of any other YouTubers out there. He's critical of SJWs and feminists, and he's a gay male who cares about improving the state of culture for gay men in the Western world. And I really, really appreciate what he's actually doing as an individual. He's not here for the YouTube drama, though maybe, like everybody, he might get wrapped up in it when it comes a knockin'. I don't know if that's happened to him yet, but
it's
whatever.
fun when I see it, but I'm not presently big enough yet to have gotten swallowed into it. Other than every once in a while, I see my senpai being attacked, and of course that of course makes me bristle a little bit. But I'm too small to make any difference one way or the other, so I'm just here.
Well, but that's certainly not what drew you here. And a lot of
No, I could give two shits about YouTube drama outside of, I mean, honestly, even the entertainment aspect of it is sort of like, eh. I mean, it's like, I remember my husband and I were watching one of the streams once, and he's like, these guys are like children. And I'm like, well, no, a lot of them are really smart, but it's hard to have an intelligent debate when you're just a bunch of floating heads screaming at each other.
yeah, yeah, it's pretty silly. But so basically, I just wanted him to talk about why he started his YouTube channel, what actually interests him, stuff from maybe like the real fucking world, and oh, and because the other thing is that almost every time we've streamed, we haven't actually saved it for some reason. There was a reason for me
It's
not.
because he's ashamed of me. That admit it, Prince. Like I was just there for you when you were in timeout, but and now that you have your stream,
Yeah,
no.
I just want you to explain yourself and what blah 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 blah. Tell your fucking life story on this stream, and then we can finally save a stream with you in it once and for all.
It'll be nice. I appreciate it. For those of you who don't know, I am very grateful to Prince of Queens because, well, for one, he is actually the reason I have this name. I had another much more forgettable name before, and he very kindly suggested that it was forgettable and I should maybe consider changing it. And so he helped me get this one. And also, he was one of my early inspirations to become a YouTuber because, honestly, even as recently as 6 months ago, the idea of being a gay man who wasn't a, completely automatic Democrat, everything super liberal, everything is like trans and inclusive, and of course feminists are good people. It was unthinkable. And then I saw his video content. I'm like, oh, he's making these, and I mean, granted, every once in a while his avatar has a tinfoil hat on it, but but generally speaking, he's a very reasonable person, and he's got 12,000 people who think he's reasonably interesting. So that means he's not just some fringe lunatic.
Assuming they're not all bots, they might be bots. By the way, smash that like button and smash the like button for this stream and everybody who's watching if you can. And also, I do take donations on Streamlabs. Streamlabs.com/Prince of Queens live streams is, I believe, and I will put that in the video description.
Are you still avoiding super chats because of the month delay?
I I not exactly, but Streamlabs is always better because it goes
It's just
directly.
preferable. Yeah.
Well, it's yeah, they don't take 30% out of it.
Yeah, that's definitely a good thing. So yes, people, support my senpai. Give directly to him. Give all the gold. Um.
So,
Okay. So yeah,
so
coming
yeah,
back
yeah,
to
the orthodoxy of feminism, and then you
LGBTness.
you started watching my channel, and apparently that some people thought that I was reasonable, and you thought I was reasonable,
I
and
did.
yeah.
So yeah, basically, I excuse me. That's attractive. Um, Even in college, when I was still in the closet, because I'm one of like 3 gay men that came out of the closet and then went back into the closet. I've never actually met anyone else who's done that. I'm pretty sure I can't be the only one, but I
Wait,
did.
wait, wait, I didn't ever hear that story.
Oh, I thought I told you that.
I mean, I think you
Uh,
mentioned it to me, but it didn't really register. So that's one of those things where somebody can mention that to you, and it's just like,
it's
but then you get to know them better, and then you're like, wait, you did that? Tell me,
it's
tell me
true.
more about it. So,
So when I was in middle school, I grew up in a very religious school and family. I grew up Seventh Day Adventist for, and those of you who don't know, they are let's put it this way, they're one step less crazy than Mormons or Jehovah's Witness, but about 2 steps crazier than your average, like say Baptist or Pentecostalist, depending how deeply they're into it. Basically, they're Christians that really, really, really want to be Jews. So they go to church on Saturday. They don't eat meat or wear jewelry and they have this weird thing about how like your body doesn't really belong to you; it belongs to God, and you have to keep it clean. It's sort of like you're a janitor of your body, and if you don't keep the temple, God's temple, clean, then God will be mad at you. It's really strange. Anyway, so that's what I grew up in, and you can imagine they don't like gays very much. So I came out when I was in about 8th grade to my classmates, and it was actually pretty good. I was surprised they accepted me, and then I met this hot. He has some. I swear to God, he sounds like a fake person, but this is a real person. He was a Jewish Norwegian Mexican. I swear to God, I didn't make that person up, but he
sorry,
was.
I'm eating while you tell this story, but I can hear
You're
you.
always eating or drinking or doing something. I'm just when I'm on with you, so I'm used to it. But yeah, so this guy, we'll just call him Stan. It's not his name, but so yeah, I met Stan, and I was so utterly in love with him just from the get-go because even though he wasn't from my school, I had been with the same basically 20 kids from 2nd grade until 10th grade the entire time. Like, I don't know if that many of you know what it's like to grow up in a really small school. But that's what it was. I mean, there were 200 people in kindergarten through 10th grade in my school. Most of them, and it was all multi-generational. Like, my parents went to school with my teachers when they went to that school. It was just a really super bizarre environment. Anyway, so yes, I met Stan, and I fell head over heels in love with him from the get-go. And this was after I came out. He didn't know that I had come out. And then we were getting along, talking. He was smart, he was attractive. And then he mentioned some offhand story about how like some guy came out to him in a movie theater, and he jumped back to a couple seats, a couple rows back in the movie theater, and he never hung out with that guy again. And my hormonal, irrational mind at the time said, "Oh, yeah, that's aren't those gays annoying?" And at that point, I just hardcore tried to backstep my entire coming out. I basically told everyone, "Oh, I was confused. Yeah, no, I totally love pussy. Yeah, yeah,
When
that's
did
it."
you come out the first time?
8th grade.
Oh, okay. And then you tried to
Went
go
back
back in.
in 9th grade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Because of a
and
because of a hot guy.
yeah, because I'm a hot guy. So yeah, which totally makes sense. Like I basically I thought that I could be like his brother.
Good thing there
but
wasn't
I
an
could
article
sleep.
talking about bro jobs and shit.
Yeah, no, serious. It was totally dysfunctional. I mean, I spent the next 8 years being sort of like his. I was I mean, I really did love his family. He had. I was my. It's what I think that's why I love Jewish people so much. Like I love Jewish families, mothers, grandmothers, the whole. They're really quite wonderful people. Um, and I loved his family dearly. They treated me much better than he did, actually.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I spent the next 8 years being sort of like his brother slash servant. I mean, he could call me at like 5 in the morning when I was in high school, and I would find some way to drive out there about 20 minutes away from my house and pick him up so
Oh,
that he could have
did he collect on that?
what?
Calling you at 5 a.m. and
Oh no, all the fucking time, and
oh my god.
so that he could have sex with girls in the backseat of my car.
Oh god.
Um, oh yes. And I can't really tell you rationally what I got out of it, other than, I mean, when we were drunk and by ourselves, occasionally, like we'd watch porn, and things would happen. That if one time I tried to talk to him about it afterwards, and he punched me in the mouth. Um,
Hmm.
so I didn't talk about it after that, and yeah. So eventually, the relationship came to, if you'll forgive the pun, a head when we got really drunk, and he was abusing pharmaceuticals all the time, and which meant I was abusing them, because if anything he did, he'd want me to do with him. And so yeah, one time he abused them a little worse than I did, and he fell asleep, and I did something which I'm not very proud of. I undid his pants, and I finally consummated the relationship. Not completely. I basically just gave him a bro job while he was asleep. Um, which I guess technically makes me a terrible person. I mean, not counting all the other things that happened back and forth with us. But yeah, anyway, so there was no denying at that point what happened. And so he didn't want to have anything to do with me. And then eventually he said he would talk to me, but I had to see a therapist first. And it's funny that after that I did see a therapist. And then the therapist was like, okay, so clearly you've been gay this whole time, and this whole straight thing was just your way of like trying to stay close to him. By the way, also Stan and his friends are terrible people, and they don't care about you at all. They're just using you. And I'm like,
For like rides and shit.
yeah. Oh no, you have no idea. But I mean, like all, I I valued myself so little
Hmm.
that I basically thought there was no reason why anyone would want to be around me unless I was like doing stuff for them. And I mean, I would just go out of my way to be nice to them and their girlfriends and their mistresses. And like, that was just all I could think to do, to be with the cool kids, was to just be like their servant slash, and they would constantly verbally harass me. I mean, and to a certain extent, I understand now, years later, that that's just sort of like what straight dudes do to each other. And I guess part of the reason why it was so abrasive to me was because, since I was conflicted about my own identity, whenever they call me a bitch faggot, they might not necessarily have meant it quite as hurtfully as I took it. But at the same time, it's hard to know. So anyway, after I saw the therapist and I came out, and for the last and final time, I became much more confident with myself, and they would say things that used to put me in my place, and I would just joke back or laugh or just completely shirk it off. And then the relationship became kind of unstable at that point because I was no longer their willing vassal, and it completely self-destructed when I met my future husband, who is older than me. Not a lot older than me, but older than me, and I was a little bit older than them. He's about 15 years older than me. But we met, and I was crazy about him, and he was crazy about me, and their reaction was like, well, he's old and creepy and he's a scrub. They actually said the word scrub, which I'm looking back, I'm like,
what does that even mean anyway?
I guess it means someone who's like, not really worth your time, or kind of like a yokel, or
I guess undesirable is the best
Yeah,
synonym.
I mean, it's from a TLC song, and they were a
Well, no,
couple
wait,
of
no, it was around before that.
I always okay, I didn't know that. But anyway,
Yeah,
like
yeah, it was something my sister used to call me that.
coming
Um,
from coming from a Jewish guy and an Italian guy, it's like I just didn't seem right. um, I'm not Italian. His Stan's friend was Italian. Um, but yeah, so they basically said, okay, so it's him or us, and I didn't stay with them.
mm.
I in retrospect, I wish I had been a bit ballsier and just told them to fuck off. But basically, what I did is I just stopped talking to them. Period.
Mm.
And that was 10 years ago.
Huh.
That was a very long explanation. Why did I start
No, no,
talking
it's
about
not that. It's not that long. This is all about you. That's the name of
Yeah.
this stream.
I feel so important.
One of the things, if I can speak highly of my goddamn self. So I recently went on a vacation with my mother, and I
And a
have a
seagull.
and a fucking seagull, and I have a tendency to talk a lot, and obviously, but
Not you.
uh, but I do have the ability to be a pretty good listener if I try, but I got to get in the zone of trying. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, I that is all a very, very fascinating story. What region? I know that you live in the sort of mid to northern California region now,
I
and
live in the. I basically lived for most of my life in the Bay Area.
okay,
Not in
so
the same Bay Area that you lived in. I was in the North Bay basically my whole life.
so like Marin County.
You're thinking where the rich people lived. I was more in like the Napa. I was more in the Napa Sonoma place where like
Oh, Sonoma. Okay.
yeah. So like it's funny because that whole Napa Sonoma Valley. It technically, I mean, yes, if you buy a house there now, yes, you have to be rich. But the people that live there, so there's a difference between the Napa Valley and hey, I'm from Napa. And yeah, because the people that live in Napa, like they may have grown up there, and their homes may technically be worth like somewhere between $400,000 to $900,000, but they all work at the Walmart, and a few of them haven't even graduated high school, if you know what I mean. Like,
Uh-huh.
it's not at all. The city council is trying so desperately to hide the actual people that live in Napa from the tourists and the investors. It's very funny, and those are the people that I was hanging out with.
Yeah, yeah. Is Napa might be kind of like maybe the closest thing that northern northern to mid California has to a resort town.
There are quite a few, but I think Napa's definitely the most famous, if nothing else, just because of the wine country and the wine train and the
Uh-huh.
restaurant. I mean, it has the reputation. There are plenty of other places which are honestly, I mean, to be perfectly honest, for the 17 people who are currently listening, if you have the opportunity to go to Napa or Sonoma. I mean, it's a little bit different now because the old Napa City Council, I think they finally murdered them because they were a bunch of old coots that didn't want Napa to change. But in general, Sonoma is much nicer than Napa,
Huh.
although there is a lot of new stuff in Napa now. But yeah, Napa has always had the prestige factor, the name, let's just say.
Huh. So you got together with your husband 10 years ago?
Yep.
10 years ago. Okay. And when did you go to nursing school?
About 3 years ago.
About 3 years ago. And
Yeah, it was kind of a random thing.
it was a random thing.
Well, not random. I mean, my mother's a nurse. My dad's a doctor. My whole family is involved in medicine in one way or another. I had always said I wasn't going to do it. I didn't think I had the aptitude, and I was very creative. I went to school for film studies. I wanted to do playwriting or work in the film industry. And then when that didn't work out because I hated Southern California, I wanted to do interior design. To this day, I can still actually tell you the difference between wool, polyester, and nylon just by touching it in the dark room. Pretty useless skill, but I can do it. So, but I wanted to do that, but then I realized, I don't know enough rich people. I'm not attractive enough to be a prostitute, because a lot of interior designers are, like David Bromstead, these really hot gay men who, yes, they're selling you, a color scheme and, a room plan and the furniture, but there's also a lot of, couples, gay, straight, or whatever, basically paying to have this person in their life, in their home, to make them feel like they have access to this incredibly attractive person. And I'm not, I mean, you've seen me, Prince, I'm not ugly, but I'm no David Bromstead. I'm not going to no one's going to pay me on Chatterbait to do something. But yeah, it honestly, it came to the point where it was about 4 years ago, and I was working at my third furniture store, and I just wasn't enjoying it. And the old furniture salesman that had been doing it since, like, I don't know, the 60s, back when you could actually make money doing that. And they said, you know what? Don't be like us. Don't be, in your 70s without any savings, no future, no retirement. Like, do something that has, a long-term future to it. And I had recently bought a home. My parents helped me when the market crashed, and I was like, you know what? I just turned 30 recently, and I was like, you know what? I need to try to do something different. And at that point, I decided, you know what? I need to actually take care of my responsibilities and try to be independent. And I had helped take care of my grandfather when he started to succumb to Alzheimer's. And at that point, I had learned that I wasn't nearly as disgusted by things that I thought would be a huge issue. I changed adult diapers. The first time you do it, you think like, oh my God, it's the most horrific thing. And then after a while, you're just like, it's poop. I mean, like the only time I've honestly ever been bothered by like poop, blood, or any of the other just more interesting things. By the way, people, the human body is just disgusting. It's just a sack of fluids and other solids that we hope to keep inside. But yeah, like the only time I've ever actually had a problem with that was this one dementia patient at a facility I've worked at in Oakland, where they had their diaper, and I was coming there to examine them because they had, without revealing too much information, they were having issues with bleeding because they were homeless and a drug abuser, and they tried to fling their diaper full of fresh feces and who knows what else at me. Yeah. So that was the only time where I've ever like just been mortally terrified of feces, and it really didn't have anything to do with the feces. It was more like, I don't want whatever is in this diaper, I don't want to find out, and I don't want to have to go into a decontamination chamber.
Maybe there would be bleach.
No, I knew exactly. No, we had a whole decon chamber. If that had happened, like, I would have been running to the shower, like, get the fuck out of my way, bitches. Like, because I was one of like two. There are not many male nurses. I mean, we're around. Being a male nurse is actually quite desirable, because we're stronger, and just people, honest to God, people want to be around male nurses. I couldn't exactly say why, but for all the jokes, if you're a male nurse, you're quite desirable to a lot of places.
Yeah.
The only issue you'll have is Filipino women in California, at least, because they are the mafia of nursing. It is their industry. Oh, well, at least in California, probably
there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them up in Washington too.
They are. You're roboting.
Oh, you were too. I think that was just a connection thing.
So I'm here now with Daft Punk. Daft Punk, what do you have to say about your new album?
Can you hear me? Oh, wait,
okay.
I'm still roboting to you. Am I?
Okay, it's done.
It's done. Okay.
Okay, no, I was just making a joke when you were roboting. Not a very good one, since I had to explain it. But yeah, Filipino women in particular basically own nursing in California. A lot of people call them the Filipino or the nursing mafia. It's a joke in many nursing schools that you have to learn how to do. You have to do clinical documentation. You have to learn how to read doctors' handwriting, which is literally as bad as if you ever heard the joke that
Oh, you cut out. You're roboting. May okay, you're back.
Okay. See, when you become a doctor, your handwriting becomes illegible to everyone except some nurses. You have to learn how to do clinical documentation. And the other thing which you should learn if you want to become a nurse is Tagalog, which is the most common dialect in the Philippines. Because even though every facility I've ever worked at has said, like, do not speak anything but English because that will be difficult for other people to understand and you'll make the patients unhappy, because most of our patients are old white people who don't like to have, foreigners jibber jabbering around them. It makes them uncomfortable, especially when they're confused. Good luck getting any Filipino nurses to, like, the moment they see another Filipino, all of a sudden it's like it's ate this and like kuyo this and like just like they won't stop. So yeah, that's my little tangent. But honestly, I work great with Filipinos. Like I've kind of learned their rhythms and their various quirks. There's just certain jokes that you learn to make, certain observations, and unless they're completely and utterly humorless or just super religious, I've never had an issue with them.
Yeah, at the nursing home that I've been going to recently, they're all Filipino, it seems.
It's that way.
Yeah, and the guy who they are very religious. The guy who is the head of the nursing home, he's working to raise money to go back to the Philippines and start a mission in the Philippines.
Now, when you say the head of the nursing home, do you mean the one who owns it, or are you talking about the director of nursing?
Because
those are two very different things.
The director of nursing. Sorry,
okay.
I think I said that. Yeah.
No, sometimes they're the same thing, but yes, because it's very rare that you actually meet a Filipino that owns a nursing home. But I mean, every director of nursing I've ever had has been either Filipino from the get-go or eventually became a Filipino. And the bad thing about when you have Filipino director of nurses is that, and I swear, people, I'm not an alt-right race realist. I'm just telling you from my practical experience. Every time I've ever had a Filipino DON, as we call them, it's usually not that long before the white people start getting thinned out, because they have usually a lot of cousins and nieces and nephews, and most of them are nurses, and most of them need jobs. That happened at 2 different jobs I had. What's up? Oh, hey, Prince, can you entertain people for just a minute?
Oh, okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so okay. Now I'm just going to take a little bit of a break because there is somebody in my chat that keeps bringing stuff up having to do with things that I don't want to talk about on this stream. It's just not what the purpose of this stream actually are. And also the person who's asking is not somebody that I trust, is anything besides a sock puppet troll account that is asking me questions for weird purposes that I don't entirely understand. Maybe it's totally not. Maybe I'm totally wrong about this person. Maybe they're totally nice. But
okay, I'm sorry. I'm back now.
What I want to say is that anybody who is legitimately curious about any sort of YouTube drama and any sort of like weird crap that's been going on, trust that the YouTubers that you like, the YouTubers that have integrity, the YouTubers that tell the truth, we're not going to stop. We're not going to not talk about the truth. Like, it's not going to not come out eventually. We're just waiting until the right moments to make our videos and to really clearly say how we feel. So if you're interested in hearing our side of the story and interested in hearing like what we have to say about one specific thing, you're going to hear it eventually. But you can't always just just ask us questions and expect us to answer at any given moment. That's just how it is. So yeah. So if people want to talk to me personally about things, they can pay me $50 for a private hangout. But usually I'd prefer that just to be a, private conversation about whatever the hell, usually about their life and SJWs and what they think about that kind of thing. But I would probably give the money back if somebody wanted to pay me $50 for YouTube gossip. And that's all I have to say about that. Okay, let's go back to your story.
Hey, before I go any further, my dear friend Athos that you met before is in the
Hey.
chats.
Hi, Athos.
Hey, can we invite him in?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, cool. Let me.
And hey, BH person, yeah, I know you're very likely not a sock puppet because your account was created in 2014. But there are people who might have created sock puppets in 2014 and still have them. It's not impossible. So I don't know that. Okay. All right. Invite Athos.
Yeah, I'm sending it to him right now. I hope you can come, Athos. That's the wrong one. For God's sake. Why is this so difficult? All right, there we go. But yeah, by the way, did you like my my origin story that I put in?
Your origin story that you put in,
the video I uploaded today.
Oh, I did. I did really like your video. I thought it was
cool.
good.
Thank you. As you know, and for those of you, all of you who basically don't know, my husband fractured his hip falling outside of our house. So I've been homebound taking care of him after work. So I haven't had much else to do except edit that video and work on it obsessively. And I figured I'm not that big of a channel yet, but it's not bad to have a channel trailer, although I don't know if you can call a 10-minute video a trailer, but
I need to have a channel trailer.
You should, honestly. I mean,
I have one technically set as one that's called like SJWs are uncool, but like honestly, I could sort of update that now because I've come a long way since that video.
Mm-hmm. Every time I try to send him, I don't know if I sent him the right one. Athos, you followed him on Twitter, didn't you?
I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, people. We're stalling for a minute.
Let me look.
I keep trying to copy it, but I don't think it's coming out right.
By the way, who is the guest? The guest is Our Cat's Gay, is what his name is. If you didn't realize, his name is in the title. Crafty Arts says that he thinks I'm going beyond SJWs these days. Yes, I am. Yeah, because the new form of tribalism is no longer confined to SJWs. It's distinctly morphing into an ambiguous I don't know what I'm trying to say. An ambiguous conglomerate of people who were once united by being anti-SJWs are, drifting off into various factions, some of which still care about things. I would consider myself one of them, and I would consider Our Cat's Gay one of them. We care about gay men. We care about improving the lives of gay men. I also care about
men in general, I think, but yes, especially gay men.
And other people seemingly just want to watch the internet burn, and it's.
I guess we're part of that.
And I'm having to criticize them a little bit. And it's not because I want to, but hey, I didn't want to criticize SJWs. Like, I didn't choose the culture war. The culture war chose me. And
we were drafted.
Yeah. I found myself in between a gun and an innocent child, and I threw myself in front of the gun and said,
on top of a landmine.
Yeah, and then they captured me, and I escaped, and I've been fighting those soldiers ever since. You know what I'm saying?
And now he's trying to sell his book on MSNBC, which you can get on Audible.
Yeah.
P.S. Athos is too tired because he is on the other side of the country, so he just
Oh,
won't
okay.
watch
So
us.
he's not even gonna come.
No,
Okay.
everyone, you should definitely check out Athos. He's been working with me a lot on my content. He has a great channel. His channel's been sleeping a little bit, let's say, for the last a while, but he has an amazing voice and he's very smart. But
Yeah,
anyway,
he's a
yes,
really nice guy.
he is
I
super
liked.
nice.
Um,
If you don't like Athos, you just don't like people. That's my view.
yeah.
But anyway, um, I'm sorry. What were we talking about before we tangented?
We were talking about Filipina nurses or some
Um,
crap, but it's not
yeah.
really that interesting of a topic of conversation.
I mean, if there were, if it's only interest, if there were other nurses here, it might be interesting because then we
Yeah.
could swap horror stories. But
Well, okay,
otherwise, it's
I've been
just
going
me.
to old folks' home all the time, and so like I kind of have a thing to say about that. But yeah, it's one of those, it's like there are some people who like there is entire channels devoted to the game Overwatch, which I play all the time. There's a lot of them apparently. Like it's like because the game is so good and it's so like it's like an alternate reality where you
Like StarCraft in North Korea,
um.
or not
I
North Korea, South Korea. There's nothing in North Korea.
Yeah, I think it's actually very similar because it's the same company actually who makes the
Oh,
game.
Blizzard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um
I'm playing StarCraft again after many years of not. If nothing else, just because my laptop, which is very pretty in aluminum, it's a laptop and it it doesn't have a dedicated GPU, so I can't really play anything more advanced than 10-year-old games on it without stuttering it to pieces.
oh, I forgot to sorry. I forgot to
That wasn't a deep point.
okay. So, I need to monetize this stream. It'll probably get demonetized instantly, but hey.
Well, I'm on it, so I have a knack of getting you in trouble apparently.
Well, I think everything does. I don't think that that's a
For those of you who don't get the reference, apparently my first video, which I shared with Prince of Queens, and that's how we met because he took an
oh
interest in
yeah.
my
I didn't
naive
get the
little.
reference.
He shared that reference in a Facebook group of gay political people, and apparently I my video got him kicked out of that group, which I felt kind of bad about, but it definitely makes a great story. I mean,
Wait,
there's
I don't
nothing.
even know how to fucking monetize this. Um,
I couldn't tell you. I only have 341 subscribers. I don't know if I'll ever be able to monetize anything.
oh wait, I know how to do it here. Okay, this is how I can do it. There we go. There we go. So, yeah, I got kicked out of this Facebook group because I liked Arcat's gay video, and I usually don't. I mean, I occasionally would share my own videos in that group, but I try to share enough videos from other people so that it was harder for them to figure out that it was me. Because enough of the people in that group actually knew me in real life. Like I probably knew well over 100 of those people in real life. It was okay, granted, there's like a 1,500 people in that group. I probably had met like 500 of them, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I just fucking knew a buttload of people. And
Prince is a bit of a social butterfly.
I
And by social butterfly, I mean he's in a swarm of monarch butterflies just flying through the forest, meeting people.
yeah, something like that. I not so much anymore. Not so much anymore, but maybe I will go back on the social butterfly rat race. At some point when I decide that I need to that
Reconnect with the people.
well yeah, and honestly what I'd like honestly honestly I've been saying this for so long and it just hasn't actually happened. What I'd like more than anything would be able to feel as if I can step away from like making the type of videos that I make and um do something like do something once a week that has nothing to do with me directly talking about my own opinions, but is actually like a scripted drama, like a fucking television show or some shit like that, or once or twice a week, or like it comes out like a season of a show, and I work on it all year, and then there's a new season and it airs and blah blah blah. That's what I would really really like to do. And yeah, you might lose the Prince of Queens that you know now.
But
If,
I know you on Facebook. You'll never
yeah,
get away from me.
but I will always be the same person. Like the Prince of Queens that you know now is not very dissimilar to how I am in real life. I would say I'm a little bit bitchier and a little bit hastier when
Wait,
interacting with people. But
you're bitchier in real life?
yeah, well, okay, bitchier than I come across if you watch my videos. I think that a lot of people like I choose my words quite carefully in my videos, and
As
I
opposed
think
to real life, where you just, I guess, shower people with acid. Is that what you're saying?
I say things that I don't that
That
I
you
probably
regret,
yeah
perhaps?
that I probably should like it probably would be like less diplomatic or more diplomatic if I said some other thing, like just because. That being said, I knew all of these people, a whole bunch of these people in real life, and they're a bunch of cunts. Like these people are fucking cunts. It's not a gay political group. It's just these gay guys who are gay guys, basically. I'm not going to give any more information about it than that. But they largely think that they stand for something, but they don't ever really clarify what that something actually is. And there was a period where it was that they were all united by, they would probably say some sort of like weird, kind of cringy, something to the effect of that they worship the sacred faggot energy or some shit like that. Like that's probably what they would say.
Interesting.
The magical faggot. We worship the sacred magical faggot energy or some shit like that. Which, like, okay, it's
That
cringy.
sounds like my fake penis religion, where I used to, as a joke, used to tell my girlfriends that they didn't have souls because the body needed a rod to conduct the divine energy into the body, and they just had holes. But that was a joke. Not a very good one, but it was a joke.
Yeah. Well, some of these guys, they get into that stuff, and I came across them in my life during a period when I never really wanted to get into it because I don't really you know
You're not radical enough.
I don't get branded to be part of a tribe, like I just but at the same time I kind of liked I just liked the notion that there was a group of people that were very very
Of like
into
mind.
they were very into owning their homosexuality, that weren't just
Mm-hmm.
totally degenerates, like that weren't just it wasn't based around clubbing. It was there was a positivity about them.
A bit of
And
depth.
yeah,
That's kind
and
of how I feel about the whole gig towel thing.
yeah, I hope it can be something positive. I really really do.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what this movement. Okay, I'll just say it was a radical fairy group, and that's what this movement started out as. It was the radical fairies were just some fucking gay guys that didn't want to live in the city, and they didn't like they were just making it up as they went along. All it was a group of gay guys. That's really all it was. And the way that they ended up being classified as like an actual social genre was through trial and error. It was like natural selection. They got communes, and then there was this newsletter that was distributed through all of the communes that were in North America that were about the hippies, and they those the newsletter, it was called like the Rainbow Newsletter or some shit like that, and it wouldn't publish gay male stories because they wouldn't. And so they made their own newsletter, and through that newsletter, they ended up actually sort of like identifying as some sort of a culture. But that just evolved semi naturally. And it all started from gay guys being like, hey, we should focus on loving ourselves, loving each other, and not giving a fuck about anybody else. And so it's the same thing as GigTown. Anyhow, you made this video about Grindr has fallen, and the thing is about the radical fairies is that they've been taken over by intersectionality. They have been taken over by intersectional feminists, and it was a hostile takeover. They kicked guys out of their own fucking literal land, like guys who lived on a land for 20 years getting kicked out by the head feminist. And it's really, really fucked up shit. And so, of course, I post videos about feminism not uncommonly at all, but usually I pick ones
I think that's how I met you. Or not met you, but how I was initially attracted to you, because I've always known there was something wrong with feminism, even if I couldn't question the broader implications of LGBT.
Thanks. So I would try to sort of like carefully choose which videos to post in the group because I didn't want to post anything that I felt would really, really rock the boat all that much. And out of the videos of mine that I would occasionally post, I didn't want to post anything that would rock the boat that much. But then you made that video about Grindr has fallen, which was basically, intersectional feminism has conquered Grindr, the gay male hookup profile application. And it was
just too much.
And it was just so topical that I did not give a fuck what they thought, And so I posted it in there, and they freaked the fuck out, and they started saying that it was hate speech, and I basically was like, yeah, why? What did he say that was hate speech? Nobody could answer. They said it was transphobic, and I said it's explicitly not transphobic. If you get to the end, he specifically says that he harbors no ill will for trans people. And they were like, well, it's trans exclusionary. And he's like, I don't even think, and I said, I don't even think that he necessarily doesn't want trans people around. I think he just doesn't want them making the rules. But then they kept just saying, well, no, it's hate speech. It's hate speech. It's hate speech. They had no tangible way of saying why it was hate speech. And then I started verbally
digging in.
Then I started verbally sparring with the moderator because the moderator was being an authoritarian cunt. And he was basically just saying, well, it's hate speech because I said so. Now shut up. And I was like, oh, you get to make the rules now. You get to make the rules. I mean, I suppose you do of your little group, but I wonder why you feel so inclined to tell me which videos that I can't post. And you won't even clearly say why. And that just seems really authoritarian to me. I wonder if it's because you're an intersectional. And actually, from what I know about you as an individual, I actually think that you're a fucking communist, as far as I know, which is true. This guy, I'm pretty sure he's a communist. He's an Antifa supporter, certainly. I know that much. And I also know that he is at least certainly high ranking in terms of being in charge of land. There's like a radical fairy land that's by the it's probably about 2 hours outside of San Francisco. And he would be maybe if he's not first, he'd be within top 3 command of that land. And I think it's
He's
likely
the adjunct priestess.
Yeah, and I think it's likely that he has some sort of money making thing going on with that land. But I don't really know how it works, but I know that these people who own the land at this point, it ends up being a situation where one person's in power, they deal with all the money, and they can use the land to generate money for themselves. And so I started kind of like questioning that shit about him, and then he banned me. So it's not like I just got banned immediately for like...
I was the catalyst, but not the exclusive reason.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? We got to get back to talking about you because we lost a bunch of viewers. But like that's the story of why I got banned from this group for posting your video, which was a really, really great video. How about we talk about you and your experiences with Grindr. You use Grindr a lot. I don't use Grindr.
I do, not as much as I used to, but yes, I have been known to whore myself on Grindr. I'm not saying I am a whore. He totally is a whore. Yeah. Grindr is a funny thing because it's not the most reliable. I mean, it was never that great of a thing. It's not like I made this video about Grindr. And for those of you who don't know the context what we're talking about, so basically, my first video was where I felt like I just got pushed completely over the edge, where I said, because Grindr caved to activists where they added other gender identities, which on a men for men hookup app does not make sense.
Yeah.
It's like it's men for men. So why would there be other gender identities? And so because there aren't any straight women that want to be on there. So basically it was just like, okay,
Except for there probably are.
I guess, yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, like the only thing that really mattered on Grindr was, were you a dude that wanted other dudes? And there've always been trans people on there, and I mean, it's not my thing. I'm sorry, like I don't harbor any ill will against trans people, but I like dick.
Yeah,
that's what I want. And I don't. There are some female to male transsexuals I've seen who I found attractive until I found out they were trans, and that's not because it's like, oh my god, what a horrible, disgusting thing. It's like, well, no, it's because I know there's no dick, and I'm sorry. Yes, I know that they have the way that they make trans genitalia. It's I understand that they have something usable. It's not what I want, and even if it were, I'm a little bit of a size queen. Which is funny because I'm a top, but I still I still like it to be. It has to be at least as big as mine. That's
lots of gay guys I think are like that. Like,
yeah.
it's not necessarily like, okay, I largely am a top for the most part, but at the same time,
but you don't want something smaller than you. It's just,
well, it has
insulting.
well, a dick and a okay, I haven't seen that many images of transgender, female to male transgender dicks. Like, I don't yeah, maybe I should like look into that. No.
Right, basically they take the vagina and
I mean, yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, and they invert it. I mean, I've watched a little bit of a transsexual porn just to see what was I missing, and I'm sorry, I wasn't very impressed. Like I said, like it's one thing. I mean, if you're just using the person as a bottom, I mean, I guess that's, you want whatever.
And I could do that under the right circumstances. If it looked like that one celebrity, Aiden, whatever, who's like on Men's Health Fitness, who's like actually totally hot, and I was like fucking kind of wasted and really, really horny, and he was just stuck his butt in and was like, fuck me, and I was like in bed with him, and I could probably totally do it and like not think about it, and like I'd be fine with that. But at the same time, I would never date this person. I would never think that it was a good idea to, like, let's say I hooked up with a guy like that, and then he liked me and like wanted to go on another date with me, and I'm like, okay, you actually have a vagina, I can't date you, I need like that. It actually
it's a spiritual thing almost. I mean, yeah. Here's the thing, like I've had this discussion with a friend of mine who he sort of, I remember when I was younger and more cynical, I used to try to, like almost every gay guy I've ever met has tried to convince at least one hot straight guy to let him give him head, because it's like, well, mouth's a mouth. I think we've all either hopefully just heard and not necessarily been the one to make that argument, but yeah, mouth's a mouth, a hole's a hole, what does it really matter? But then you start thinking about it, it's like, yeah, but except I came to empathize with how abhorrent, or at least not abhorrent, but like how unsatisfying that would be to a straight dude. Because even though, yes, most gay guys probably get much better head than almost any woman, just because, well, we know what we're doing. That being said, though, as much as, how do I say this? It doesn't matter how technically skilled you are if the person providing that skill does not correspond with, your programming. Like, I don't want head from a girl. I had that a couple times in college when I was when I was still kind of in and out of the closet, and it's like, aside from the fact that she was extremely bad at it, even if she wasn't, it just, I hated every minute of it, because it was just not, there's no intellectual way to explain it. It just, if it's not what you want, then it doesn't matter how good they are at it. Like, a hole is not just a hole if it contradicts your basic personhood, your basic being. So
yeah, I think that for me, like, I could potentially have sex with a transgender male once or twice. Like, I'm not putting that past that. Like, the way that my hormones work, and uh seeing a few transgender guys that are actually hot. Like, that's, I'm not gonna say that that's absolutely impossible, but I find it extraordinarily unlikely, like, 99.5% unlikely that it would ever be anything besides a one night stand. And I worry about any sort of potential risk of drama that would come as a result of me saying, hey, I was just doing this because I was simultaneously really horny and curious, and now I never want to fuck you again. I hope that's cool. And and I worry that it wouldn't be cool. And so I'm just never going to do it.
yeah, I get that. I mean, I don't think I've ever had sex with a trans person, to my knowledge, unless one of them was really good at passing, because I also go to bathhouses, because I'm not just a whore. So I have been married for 10 years. You guys have heard that. But so my husband has some medical problems. I'm not going to go into it, but he's disabled, and it just doesn't happen a lot for us. But we've gotten to the point where we understand, we've been together for 10 years. We're coming home to each other every night. Like, that's not at all the most important thing. I have needs, and I need to go out and do things sometimes, but I still come home. And I mean, I think that's one of the things that, like, that's different about, like, say, gay guys or men period, but especially gay guys, that doesn't necessarily work in a heterosexual or any relationship involving women, which is that men have the ability to completely detach sex from any kind of emotion without it being some sort of weird trauma thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like a taking
It's
almost like
just a physical act.
almost like going to the bathroom. You have to
Yeah,
get off.
I was going to say that. Like, it's a purely physiological activity. Like, you have to engage. You get a buildup of hormones. Your body's like, okay, I need to do this. I need to do this. And then, yes, you can masturbate, but that's only going to work so many times before your body gets wise to it. It's like, nope, no substitutes. So yeah, that happens. And I feel like all relationships on a certain level, I think the monogamy, I think it's important in certain circumstances. I think it's more important for heterosexual relationships, if nothing else, because since most people do not use any kind of contraception, which is stupid and insane. I'm on PrEP, which in theory prevents me from ever contracting HIV, but I still use condoms every single time, because why wouldn't you? There's just no reason to take you just because you can't.
I'm starting to become convinced that there's going to be a new super syphilis that's going to start, like, killing people
I hate to tell you this, Prince. There is a super syphilis. There's already antibiotic resistant syphilis. I mean, but it's bad. Overuse here. You've triggered the nurse in me, so here we go. Overuse of antibiotics in American and Western medicine has been leading to all kinds of antibiotic resistant so-called what Fox News might call superbugs. It's not the best term for them, but it's descriptive enough. There are all kinds of antibiotic-resistant bacteria, which are basically impossible to treat. I mean, your average nursing home has at least several cases of what's called MRSA. You might have heard of that.
Yeah.
It's methicillin-resistant staphylococcus. I just mangled that, but
isn't it a staph thing?
Yes, it's antibiotic-resistant staph, and once you get that, we don't really have a way to cure it. It won't necessarily kill you. You kind of just have to wait for it to go its course and eventually go dormant. But yeah, that's just staph. But there's all kinds of viruses. Well, not bacteria and viruses, which of course are different. But yeah, for every cure or treatment we come up with, new and more insidious infections arise. Mm-hmm. Which is why it's better to not trust a pharmaceutical, which even though it's, for those of you who don't know, PrEP, a lot of gay guys use it. It's also known as Truvada, or it is a very long name, which I don't recall at the top of my head. It will prevent you if you have access to it. It's very expensive. Some insurance plans cover it. But basically, if you take this medication, you are 99 point some percentage assured to not get HIV. That being said, though, you should still use a condom for several reasons. One, you can still get syphilis because that's not a virus, it's a bacteria. And you know what? You want to know my most practical reason why I always use a condom, Prince?
So you don't get shit on your dick?
Yes. Improper douching. The worst thing that can ever happen to anyone. It was drilled into me at a young age. This is so typical of us. We're always talking about somehow penises, and gay sex always comes up whenever we talk.
That's the nature of what we have in common. Yeah.
I haven't mentioned Aiden Paladin yet, although I am now. But I did see a blip on my computer. I guess she just released a new video, which for me is quite a undertaking. I don't know if I get the sense that you maybe don't like her quite as much as I do.
She's all right.
Yeah, I mean she's my I don't know, but I'm not as invested in the YouTube-ness as you are, and if I were, I'd probably feel differently. But I
appreciate that she delivers clinical information about things that I'm interested in on occasion. I think that And she's a good writer, and she has a pretty good delivery. I find her videos a little bit long and a little bit directionless for me to like.
They're long.
But if there's a particularly good reason for me to feel inclined to know about what she's talking about, she does some really great videos. Like when she made the video about the Hamburg Antifa stuff that happened last year. It was great. I loved it. So yeah.
She gives me a major brain boner. Like anyway though. It's anyone who's watched me before, like there are two things that always come up in any stream that involves Prince and I, which is penises and Aiden Paladin. Specifically Aiden Paladin on any stream I'm on, but penises anytime Prince and I are together.
Somebody asked a question. What's her name?
Let's stop talking about dicks.
Josephat Pineda asked a question that was that they then retracted, which was something to the effect of, do I think that gay guys need to have their own community, or should bisexual and women people be involved, or whatever? Basically asking the questions, what should I what do I think about GigTow as an individual? And like, do I think that there should be GigTows? Do I think that there should be an LGBT community? Blah 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 blah. My personal feelings as an individual, and this is supposed to be about Art Katsuke, and I'd like to hear him reiterate his opinion after I say so, is that I think both things are necessary. I think that there should be gay men who very actively and exclusively care about the interests of gay men, because currently we don't got it. And there's problems in our community. There's a massive amounts of suicide and meth addiction and alcoholism, and like suicide of gay men in their 30s especially has been climbing a lot. People don't talk about that very much. And there's all sorts of problems, and the only people that we have that are allegedly dealing on about the issues of LGBT people are the intersectionals who have taken over the LGBT scene, and they say that gay men have privilege and it doesn't matter that we actually have all these problems. So we definitely have a necessity to have the, gig tows who are, saying, hey, let's focus on ourselves. But at the same time, I personally believe that there is still not necessarily a need, but a purpose for having a greater LGBT sort of a, I don't know, identity, but some sort of cohesion simply because of the fact that there is an actual pragmatic thing that we have in common, which is that we are people who almost certainly are not going to breed naturally, start our own families naturally, and that will always put us sort of at the outskirts of humanity. Like, even
Until
if,
we learn the ability to lay eggs.
yeah, or something. If I meet a lesbian and, even if I have nothing in common with her at all, I can at least have the conversation. When did you come out to your family? Like, when did you tell them that you weren't going to marry a man, or and I can tell them the reverse, and about I can tell her the reverse about me telling my family that I was gay, and I think that that's a valuable thing, and that we should accept that. We should accept that. So I think that both things are necessary, and that's my personal vision. I think, and I would like to be one of the intermediaries. I think that's the word, between the two. I don't want to go full gig tow. I want to be friends with the gig tows.
uh, I guess I supposed to. I should, since I'm kind of the founder. I don't know. I know there have been other gay men who have said this before, but and apparently GigTow is not even an original acronym. Apparently, there's also GigTow preceded gays going their own way, with gamers going their own way. Although I think that arguably we gay GigTows are probably planning on using that acronym a little bit more seriously than the gamers are, but I don't know. My feeling about GigTow, bi, men, lesbians, all that, I feel like gay men in general, but gay men have been violently usurped in LGBT. I mean, so originally we were the gay community. Then we were the gay and lesbian community. Then we were GLBT. And now, at some point, I think at the point where the lesbians decided that they needed their own word that was just for women, but they could also be, so you could be I did a video about this. You can be a homosexual woman, a gay woman, and a lesbian. You can only be a homosexual man or a gay man. You cannot be a lesbian man. And not that I would want to be, but the fact that the lesbians felt the need, because of feminists, to have a word which was exclusively for them, but they still had full access to the other ones, is emblematic of the issues in LGBT. Because intersectional feminism says essentially that all men are bad on some level, even gay men, then that kind of shows why we have been put to the bottom. At the moment, like, I think the most high-ranking member of the LGBTQI plus K Alpha Pikachu Ling Gong He Kong, whatever, those are just random sounds, are like transgendered, disabled people of color. Eventually, some people are trying to add kink into there. It's only a matter of time before otherkin become a member of the group. I think that gay men, the reason for GigTow is that we are being told all the time that we are sexist, we are problematic, that we're privileged, that we're all these things. We're one step better than straight men. And even if you ask, some people were just as bad, and some people say we're even worse. I think that if we view LGBT as a country where each letter is a state, our state has been so thoroughly devalued. I feel like we need to secede from this alliance. And if we're going to rejoin LGBT, then we need to come to the table as a sovereign nation with our own interests and saying, okay, if you want us, we're going to work with you, but we demand this, we demand that. Because right now, the L's are completely in charge. There's, well, I mean, really the F, the silent F in all.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because most alleged lesbians aren't actually lesbians. It's a fucking scam. Like, I would say only about 25% of self-identified lesbians will still call themselves a lesbian in 10 years. And I say that as somebody who's known lesbians in over 20 years, for over 20 years, well over 20 years. I came out over 20 years ago, but yeah, most lesbians, unlike gay men, where 98% of gay men will never fuck a woman ever. They, lesbians mostly want the cock. And it's sort of how
flesh or peanut, whether it's plastic or flesh, like at some point, some phallic object is going to go in there.
Well, and I would say a huge percentage of them sort of want human cock and realize it, and they end up
want that.
Yeah, but yeah. So yeah, and then there's all these, feminists made it very deliberate that they took over gay culture and our activist organizations and our bars and everything, like everything that had to be which was founded by gay men. They wormed their way in there by saying that it should be queer, and then they changed the definition of what queer meant to mean that straight girls could be queer. And then there's a whole bunch of these people who are supposedly queer women who now are in charge of gay male things that used to be gay male organizations, and they're just feminists. So yeah,
it's terrible. They're trying, basically, it's your typical SJW. Well, not even, SJW is just an extension of feminism, but I mean, it's the classic Orwell game where it's just you rename things so that you are in control of the meaning of the name, and then you get to decide what happens to it. I think that was probably the single biggest reason why feminists felt the need to establish lesbian, because so that they could basically have two territories inside the same country where they could still have full citizenship in gay. They're gay, but they're also lesbian, which they have exclusive control over.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I really feel the need. The reason that GigTow has become so important to me is because aside from the fact that we need to establish our own interests in the broader LGBT political group, I feel like there will always be a place for LGBTQ whatever. In the soup, I call them. Like in the soup, there will always be a purpose for the political union of outsiders, those that are not heterosexual, whatever. Like there is a certain value to us, keeping in touch and exchanging notes. But our interests are very dissimilar. Like my main reason for why GigTow is necessary is because the interests of gay men are very different than those of trans people.
Yeah.
I mean, for trans people, the biggest thing is like, what bathroom can I use and who's going to pay for my surgery?
And also how to get a date and like how to safely date, like how to learn to like come out to people that you're interested in.
Oh, and should I, or even telling people I don't need to come out. Like, if you feel the need that I need to tell this guy that I'm trans, like that's like transphobic.
Yeah, and like, hey, I understand that's a whole difficult
It's
life, and I
it's
understand
real.
that that's things that, but it's things that I don't understand and will never understand, and I don't need you telling me that I should care more about these things that I don't understand and will never understand. What I need to worry about is the fact that gay men in their 30s have more meth addiction than they have since probably the 1990s at the very fucking least, and that they're killing themselves more than they, the suicide rates are going up. I don't need to worry about the fact that transgender people have a hard time on hookup applications. I need to fucking worry about the fact that there's gay guys killing themselves after they successfully dated on hookup applications for years on end, and it left them feeling empty inside. And it left them drug addicted, empty, and sad, and they ended up killing themselves because there was no support for them in feeling like they had a purpose in life. That's what I need to worry about. That's what I care about.
Yeah, I think that the problem with LGBT is that it was politically expedient, and there is a certain financial sense in aggregating our collective interests, but when it became all about oppression points, when it became overwhelmingly and just completely about intersectionality, that's when it stopped being useful, because it's just a big high school game now of just different people, like the cliques are exchanging like musical chairs, who's more oppressed, who's less oppressed, and it doesn't have anything to do with real progress anymore. I mean, and I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people are saying that gay men would frequently get the butt of various feminists and other letters ire, because I mean, was it you familiar with Naima Lowe, that
Yeah,
horrible, that horrible bloated um BLM type lesbian woman at Evergreen?
yeah, the Red Queen of Evergreen.
Yes. Benjamin Boyce, one of these days. I was supposed to do a stream with him, and he forgot about me. I would love to
He
talk
doesn't
about
really
him.
stream.
Well, he said he was going to. Like, we made a
Yeah,
date,
but I
and then
mean
he
that
and then he forgot about it.
I just mean that he doesn't. It's not like you see streams with him.
It
Like
is true, and
I
when
think
they
I've
are, they're usually very like academic and highbrow people, and
there.
I'm
It
definitely
was
not
like
one of those people.
it was like Karen Strawn. He did some other one recently, and he did the one with me, and I haven't seen him do any other ones. I don't. Okay, but anyhow, back
Yeah.
to Naima
Oh
Lowe.
yeah. Oh yeah. So, and I remember like there's a video of her screaming about the motherfucking assimilationist gays, and that's a big thing that apparently has been an issue. Like the same activists that are trying to say that that like Stonewall was it was like the trans women out in the trenches, like setting shit
Yeah.
on fire, and like it was all the trans
True.
women. The gay men didn't do anything.
Trannies was Kangs.
Yes, that was a good video. Those same
That
people.
was an underwatched video. I can't believe so few people watched that video. But anyhow,
I think it was suppressed, honestly, because I mean it's just you can't say anything. Um, but it's a recurrent theme I've noticed from trans feminist activists talking about gay men. We're always depicted as like these cowards lingering in the background, like just simpering morons asking to be accepted. And it's like, no, I think the Honey Badgers actually did a video about the Medellin Society and how it was really gay men that have been working at it the longest. And even it's I think we've mentioned before, I
yeah,
forget who, but there was a study how they compared the effects of people being given the exact same arguments and information from someone who was like made up to appear like an activist in the way they dressed and the way they talked, and then the same person but dressed as a normal person acting like a normal person, saying the exact same things but just in a way where they didn't appear to be an activist. And they were like overwhelmingly like 2 to 3 times more successful when they were just appeared to be regular people exchanging information as opposed to an activist. Activism doesn't work. All it does is irritate people.
yeah.
It galvanizes the people that are already into it, and it inoculates the people that aren't against it. So it's like like what's his name, Jamil B, the loud black femme he calls himself. I don't I get. I don't know what
Yeah,
femmes are
yeah.
exactly. From,
He,
again,
he
from Evergreen. Um,
he's biologically male, but identifies as a femme. And
I don't know what that is, and frankly, I don't care. Um, he talks about how like how it's like important to be loud and black and out there and not again like those assimilationist white gays with they because and I think the fact that in a sense we've sort of gotten what a lot of people want, which is social integration. I mean, yes, there's still homophobia everywhere, there's still racism everywhere,
oh, there
you know
absolutely is.
but you could make the and it's a big but, you could make the argument that out of all of the in the soup, the gay men and lesbians have largely gotten huge chunks of what the other letters really want in the way of gay marriage, and the fact that even though there are still huge swaths of the country where we are not welcome, but that's again neither here nor there because there are huge swaths of the country where various people for various reasons are not welcome. They're not. It's not acceptable. It's ugly and stupid, but still, you talk to your average, not even millennial, you talk whatever the hell Minecraft, not Generation Z, the new, the after the post millennials. These kids don't care at all about gay men or lesbians. They care about activists. They care about crazy people trying to tell them that their children have to be transgendered at like age 6. But if you're
Yeah.
just like, I mean, so in my own personal experience, I take care of a burn victim. Yeah, I'm really lucky. I get to do one-to-one care.
Mhm.
And this guy, he used to be a drug dealer. The reason he's a burn victim is because he was trying to make hash, and I don't really understand how you do that, but I guess in the process of making it, something went terribly wrong, and it literally exploded in his face, and he spent like a year and a half in a coma. Anywho, this dude was pretty hard, thug life, legitimate back in the day. And he told me that if he hadn't, let's put it this way, like he wouldn't necessarily have had a problem with like a gay dude in general. Like we probably wouldn't have been friends or anything like that. But it's interesting how like he has been able to accept me just sort of being me, because for all ignoring all the dick stuff and things like that on the stream, when you meet me, I don't really come across as like a flamer. I don't wear nail polish. I don't. I'm just a dude. It doesn't really even come up most of the time. And so like we got along just fine, even though we're not compatible in that area. Funny enough, though, when The Matrix came on, he was watching that. And I was telling him, oh, yeah, the Wachowski brothers. Yeah. He's like, oh, yeah, they're fucking sick. And I'm like, they're not the Wachowski brothers anymore. He's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, they're both trans now. They're actually the Wachowski sisters now. He's like, oh, fuck that shit. That's fucking weird. And I'm not saying that to make trans people feel bad. I'm just saying that, like, that's the where we're at, where, like, the thug life dude is perfectly okay with his male gay nurse, but trans people are now that other that we used to be. You know what I mean? And part of that's visibility, part of it's just, the way the times are changing. I don't know, there wasn't a huge point to that, but I really don't think that gay men and gay women have always been more socially acceptable than men, to be honest, I think.
Oh, they always are and always will be.
That's why every time you talk about like getting an LGBT character on some famous drama, it's always going to be lesbians because straight guys find it hot, I guess. And
Yeah, and lesbians are non-threatening. They mainly
real lesbians are, but not the ones on television.
well, women are non-threatening. People aren't afraid of a lesbian being
unless she's menstruating,
being a pedophile and molesting their young daughter.
Not typically, no.
That's not something that you hear about, like, oh, all those lesbians are going to fuck all the young, no one says that. So yeah. I think that the progress that has been made for
it is real.
Oh yeah, it's very much real. But I think that the thing is, social attitudes can change really, really quickly. And one of the things that I suspect has motivated you to start making videos, and I'm certainly motivated me, is when I realized that it's not just that the left stopped caring about white gay men, which is, what a lot of people will say. That's what probably like Milo Yiannopoulos or Dave Rubin would gladly say. Oh yeah, the left stopped caring about white gay men. I think it's more than that. I think that they hate white gay men more than they hate white straight men. And I think that I think that homophobia has to do, not homophobia, is that I like to be very precise with my words, if I can be. I think that it's some sort of a combination of feeling like we're low hanging fruit and we're also
Fruit.
traitors. Yeah, like we're
Mhm.
like we're easy to pick on because there's not that many of us, and we have a reputation for not necessarily defending ourselves. Like everybody thinks that they can just pick on gay guys and that they won't fight back. And also it's like, okay, so here's a particular population of white men who we can attack for being white men, who probably won't ever kick our asses, and also they're supposed to be on our side, but we can say that they're not on our side and scapegoat them, and everyone loves a good scapegoat.
And
And
they're
that's
just bitches, so they won't say anything about it.
yeah, and that's what it kind of seems like has happened to us from the left. And then there's all sorts of white gay guys who have Stockholm syndrome around this notion. It's like they've completely internalized it, and they start to hate themselves and think that they deserve this treatment or something. And all of that really, really saddens me. And it's like, okay, if the people on the left can't even uh see to the needs of the people that they claim to speak for in any way, and are in fact eating, in fact the gay male community is being eaten from the inside out.
Mhm.
Then what happens when social attitudes change and it becomes more culturally acceptable from mainstream culture at large, during a conservative administration or the Trump administration, whatever that is, to demonize gay men? Who's left to defend us if we can't defend our fucking selves?
I know, and I think that's another reason why GigTow has become so important to me, because I feel like the niche that's been carved out for us in LGBT is very much a product of feminism, toxic masculinity, non-binariness. All of it is an attempt to hollow out men and make them weak, docile, and subservient to whatever these stronger otherkin women are going to give us. And I think that's why things like, why, for instance, like they want transgender people in Grindr, why they want to, hammer down the whole, toxic masculinity, gaytriarchy, like misogyny. Like they don't want there to be, they don't like strong men, period. They've pretty much effectively, made a buffer against straight men, demonizing straight, confident men. And now they're trying to do it to us. And it, on the one hand, it's easier because we already have this role that was, again, kind of given to us where, like, gay men are supposed to be kind of, oh my God, hot. I can't lisp, but you know what I'm trying to say.
I can.
Yes, you're much better at it than I am. It's funny. I can't snap and I can't lisp. It's like a gay learning disability. But this is honestly, everyone. This is me trying to snap. That's just. Can you hear that? You probably can't.
Kinda.
Yeah,
It sounds like the limp thud version of a snap.
yeah. No, it's totally. I can't snap. I've never been able to snap. I can't snap. I can't lisp. Yeah, and when I was learning Spanish, I also can't roll my R's. Rojo. That's as close as I get to rolling my R's. See, yeah, totally disabled in that sense. But yeah, I think that gay men, and to a lesser extent, I'm still trying to figure out our relationship with bisexual men. Honestly, that's a cookie that I have not completely cracked open yet, because I used to be. I feel kind of dirty saying this, but I mean, I used to be what you would probably call biphobic, and I don't like to use phobia words and talk about, oh my god, I had such like issues and biases. But I mean, I used to not think terribly highly of bisexual men or women. I thought that bisexual women were made up, like just bisexual women were just women that were either lesbians that were trying to be socially acceptable, or they were straight girls that like to make out with each other after they do some tequila shooters. And as far as like straight men or straight bisexual men go, I used to think that they were basically just gay guys that didn't really want to come out, which unfortunately is like a common sentiment amongst a lot of gay men. And now I finally met a few actual bisexual men, and I have decided they're a whole nother species from us. They're very real.
They're quite different.
They are very different. Every bisexual man that I have met or interacted with, they're kind of gay in that like
there is definitely the gay guys or the bisexual men who it's just a stepping stone towards homosexuality, and they are saying that they're bi, and they probably kind of know that they're not, and they're eventually just going to give up on the bi label eventually. But then there's real legit bisexual men, and it's a lot more complicated than people think. Like there's very few bisexual men who are equally attracted to men and women at all times. Usually it's like a thing where they go through a phase where they're mostly fucking girls, and that'll go on for like a few years, and then they'll go through a phase where they're mostly fucking guys, and that'll go on for a few years, and then they're in
a gel one way or the other.
And then they're attracted to different types of men than they are women. Like they're attracted to fucking burly ass masculine men, and they like getting fucked in the ass. And then they're attracted to feminine, girly ass women, and they like fucking them in the vagina. And it's like people have so many misconceptions about what bisexual men are actually like.
Do you remember when you were having your stream with Dieter Lucum? And I was buzzing in your ear in Twitter the whole time, because that was the first time I'd ever seen him actually talking about his sexuality. And when I remember, I think you asked him something like, how many guys have you slept with? Or you may even have said how many people, but I thought you said how many guys. And it's just funny how, and I noticed that with him, and then with other straight bi guys, when I asked similar type questions, it's like, for a gay guy, you ask how many have you slept with. I mean, maybe they'll be embarrassed, maybe they won't say anything, but it's usually just kind of like, oh, I don't know, or like, even though that they kind of know. Whereas like with Dieter, and I do love Dieter, for anyone who knows him, or if you're
super okay, Dieter Lucum or Dieter Lucum,
so smart.
I don't know. Yes, very smart, super nice guy. As far as I could tell, I'd love to play Magic cards with him. I am totally into the guy. I have nothing but good things to say about him, though I will say that the way he talks about being bisexual as a male was very confusing to me, and I didn't quite I don't want to say sketchy, I just didn't understand why he was so guarded about talking about it. Like it seemed like it was difficult.
He shut down completely when you asked him that. And if you just say like,
I asked him when did you first realize that you were attracted to men? And he was like, I've always. And I was like, no. When were you first looking at a dude and realized that you thought he was hot? And that was kind of weird. And then he couldn't answer the question, allegedly. And I was like, okay, that's weird. That's really weird.
Yeah, I didn't believe that response. I remember you asked me, like, I think it was when, I forget who we were streaming with someone. Was it with Athos? We were streaming with someone, and you asked, like, it was about, like, Zac Efron, or what guy was your first crush? It was Marky Mark. That was what it was.
Yeah.
And, yeah, he couldn't.
We all remember that first time where you're looking at some guy on
Calvin Klein ad, and you're
and you get a little bit of a 11-year-old boner, and you're like, oh, I get it. Like,
Yeah, and he just have that like you asked him like, and he didn't seem to have a like a story about like who was his first like kind of celebrity male crush. And it's funny because I have the feeling if you'd asked him like who was your first female celebrity crush, I bet you he could have answered. I don't know. It was just weird, and that's my experience with bi guys is like I've gotten into trouble with and you know the story, but I won't go into too many details. But I've gotten into trouble with some bi guys for interacting with them in the same way that I would with gay guys. And it turns out that even though we kind of speak a similar dialect and we have some crossover, the grammar isn't always the same. If you know
Yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's yeah, there's certain things that
we do as gay men that they really don't do as bi guys. It's just not.
Yeah, yeah. And it's easy to forget that even with like sometimes you make that mistake with females and
Mhm.
you forget that like
They're kind of a different species than you.
yeah, like I got this really bad when I lived in San Francisco, and I would go to these, I would go to leather bars and say, okay, so the leather bar in San Francisco, uh I'm sure there's some bars in LA sometimes that are kind of like how they are, and I'm sure there's definitely places in Berlin that are like this, but you'll go out on a patio and there's totally just someone getting a blowjob, and like not uncommonly at all. And they're not even trying to like hide it or anything.
It's
Like it's
just
like
there.
yeah, and it's like the guy is like wearing a leather vest and a leather harness, and
Assless
he's
chaps or something.
not necessarily assless chaps, but he's pulled down his pants. The other guy's sucking his dick, and he gets off not just on the fact that he's getting his dick sucked, but he gets off on the fact that people are watching him because he has a big dick or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not uncommon at all. Well, you can take women with you, like you have a female friend, and she'll be like, "Oh my god," and you forget that she's gonna have that reaction. And maybe a bi guy would too. I don't know.
I think they. I think it depends how far on the bi scale they are. Um, I think maybe it's just that like I've met bi guys who were bisexual, but as far as I could tell, they were basically gay. But they, it's different. Like if you're a gay guy, for instance, who, especially amongst older gay guys who have wives and children. I mean, at that point, you're kind of functionally bisexual, I guess. Even if you're really gay. Like one of my dearest friends, he passed away recently, but he was 70, and he was as gay came, but because of his age and where he grew up, he had a wife and children and grandchildren and this whole family, which is something that you don't get typically amongst just your average run-of-the-mill gay people. So to me, I feel like even if you are gay, but if you've gone through the whole trouble of siring a whole family and having grandchildren like that, that's sort of, I don't know. Am I splitting hairs here, Prince? Like it seems like that's kind of like I would say functional bisexuality at that point.
Um. So yeah, okay. I think I see what you're saying. You're saying that somebody forced themselves to have sex with women, but they secretly only really wanted to have sex with men. They were functionally bisexual.
Yeah, it's like he continued to have sex with men, but he was still married, and as far as I knew, he continued to have a sexual relationship with his wife, even though he was, not particularly. I don't think other than his wife he would ever touch a woman.
I've
But
known a number of guys that were just such horny dudes that they would fuck women occasionally, but they weren't actually attracted to women.
mhm,
Kind of like
yeah.
how I think like the bro job thing. I don't think
Are
it's
those
actually.
real, by the way, or is
I
that
don't
just
think it's actually common, but I don't think it's entirely unheard of that like 13-year-old boys will jerk each other off just because it's like human skin contact.
mhm. Yeah? It just there aren't as many circumstances in modern society where men are just completely isolated from women anymore. It just isn't like it used to be because we have transportation and integration on levels that we didn't have even like 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the Navy, I've heard that there's still a lot of, buggery going on in the
Mm-hmm.
Navy, but there are also a lot of women in the Navy, so it's not quite what it was back in the day.
Yeah, I just wonder why the narrative of like bro jobs and all of that stuff, like people have, people say that they're trying, a lot of people, that are actually really, really smart and have very good explanations behind their arguments, say that what they're trying to ultimately do is demonize sex between men and women.
Like the classic, like really classic feminist argument that like basically all sex between men and women is rape, whether it's consensual or not.
Yeah, it's an act of violence committed against the woman, according to Andrea Dworkin, who is like actually died of a heart attack because she was literally morbidly obese, and
And the world is a sadder place because she's not here.
she was she no, ugh. But um, it is funny to one of the YouTubers that I have such a mixed opinion about, I guess a love-hate opinion is what you would call it, is Black Pigeon Speaks, who
Yeah.
because there's certain things that he says where I'm like, okay, totally not on board with that at all. But then there's some videos of his which are he poses really interesting arguments, and one of the things that I'm pretty sure I got this from one of his videos that I watched a couple of years ago. I don't watch all of his videos, certainly, so it's hard to really remember. But I think this was probably about a year and a half ago, 2 years. Is
Mm-hmm.
that there's multinational corporations who basically want people to be debt slaves, and they like we look at the Western world, and
Mm-hmm.
um,
Oh, Prince, I'm sorry. Can you hold for 1 second?
oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. We look at the Western world and we see this notion of people um you you could be I'm gonna mute him because this is distracting. Um wait, I muted. So um you look at the Western world and you see this notion of individuals that are in a whole bunch of debt, and without these people that are in debt, the ruling elites that they're in debt to wouldn't necessarily have the same type of control and the same type of wealth that they have. People are in a massive amount of debt of some sort, be it homeowner debt or student loan debt, and then they keep working in jobs that they don't really like, that they have to have in order, instead of improving themselves and starting a business for themselves or whatever. And
Keep
that,
eating the Ponzi scheme.
yeah, and that keeps feeding the Ponzi scheme. And people say, oh, well, why are they importing people from other countries? Why can't people in Western worlds just make their own babies and replenish their own population to keep this cycle going? And apparently it's because people are learning not to go into debt so much. According to Black Pigeon Speaks, as far as I know, and
It's
people who are immigrants are a lot more likely to get put into debt, and that's the argument that he makes. I'm not willing to say that I know that that's the argument that I would be committed to making at all. I would want to do a lot more research before I was committed to that, but I think it's an interesting thing to contemplate
it
regarding
is.
why they would discourage heterosexual sex. It's like they want more and more um what's they want our population to not just be sustained, but to be sustained with people who are more gullible and more likely to put themselves into debt for the rest of their lives.
Well, not just that. Like, I think one of the arguments you can make is that when populations become more concentrated, let's say, like when, because you see this in Western Europe, and basically, Yeah, making my rule. Like, I'm going to invoke my lady, Aiden Paladin. So it is. She did a video where it talks about how immigrant families, the immigrants tend to have more children than native borns, because if the immigrants are coming from like the third or second world, those countries are at different stages in their social development where they tend to be more, where they tend to have the say more diffused investment strategies in their children, where, like, you produce more children to have more available labor, to have more, to spread out the resources. Whereas like in first world countries, like in Italy, for instance, the Italian government will literally pay Italians, and I learned this from my film studies professor who was from Italy. They will literally pay Italians to have to have children, because Italians have learned that they can have a much higher quality of life if they have either one child or no children, because it's expensive to live in the developing world. And so it's like you give the choice with, like, well, do you want to give up your loft with your trendy furniture and like your gadgets, or do you want to move out to the suburbs and have babies? And not everyone wants to make that choice. But typically, as societies become more developed, and they become more educated, and they become more prosperous, it's natural. Like, we see this again and again, where the societies will just start producing fewer children and investing more of their resources into smaller family units to have more maximized outcome.
Yeah.
But that's not good for, if your goal is, as you said, to make debt or to just have mass resources. Like, you don't want to have, like, I think it's the difference between these people would say that they want Walmart. They want, everything, all of it there, everything cheap, everything super common. They don't want to go into like a Target or even a Whole Foods where there's only a few things to choose from and they're all very expensive. Because we native, first worlders, we in the West, we're expensive. We have standards of living. We know what we can get and what we want. And if you bring in some, I'm sorry if this sounds bad, but if you bring in some yokel from the third world, even if they know what they, is available, they're not fully integrated. And coming from where they come from, where they have a lot less, they're going to gladly take whatever they're given, even if it's substantially less.
Mm-hmm.
We've somehow gone from penises into like ethno-nationalism.
It's hard to even follow. I think that the point is, though, is like, it does literally seem like there is, if you actually look at all the media messaging, the sexification, the amount of sex in advertising has, it never goes away entirely, but it's not mainstream in the same way that it used to be in the 1980s. Like, it's only in certain products, and only in certain products that uh are very much designed, like, in Axe body spray or some sort of like Lever 2000, you'll still occasionally see somebody with their shirt off or something. Like, some people, it's like kind of sexy people, but largely it's just not.
It's interesting because I forget, I think it was Pew or one of the other research organizations said that millennials as a group have less sex than all previous generations, which you wouldn't necessarily, but yeah, millennials have less sex, make less money. Basically, millennials are getting less of everything.
Yeah, they go out less.
Well, no, actually, that's one thing where, like, I was just reading about today. Millennials go out to eat all the time, but
I meant go out to clubs.
you mean yes, yeah, no, you are correct. Millennials are much more antisocial, even though we're hyper connected.
Except for they're on the internet and they play video games, and video games are very, very
they give that. I think, honestly, part of the reason why millennials are the way they are, the sort of like, being the fact that millennials are so hyper connected, phones on them all the time, it was a TED talk, I think, that I watched, where they were talking about how we have constant ambient connectivity. like at any given moment, we are connected to everyone, and anyone could potentially get in touch with us if, in theory, at any moment. And we're constantly being bombarded by text messages and notifications and updates, and I feel like a lot of millennials are sort of like retreating from that and kind of like becoming less social as a way to maintain their sanity from this constant barrage of activity and attention and communication, because there's only so much that you can actually do with other people before you just become kind of manic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to wrap this up in about 10 minutes.
I have to work in the morning, so that'll be good.
So yeah, we were just kind of riffing upon general weirdness at that point. So what do you want to? Okay, so you definitely want to do the gig tau thing. Spacepan definitely wants to do a stream with you. You guys have been talking about wanting to stream with each other, and
I would love to stream with him.
I think that we could maybe try the three of us. I think would actually be pretty good to start my long-awaited, the thing that I talked about, which was basically ripping off Honey Badger Radio. By the way, Honey Badger Radio, amazing. I love them.
We can be the gay Honey Badgers.
I have never seen them do anything that was something that I desperately disapproved of in any different way, and I think that I want them to know that they're super, super awesome, and that their actions over the past week have consistently impressed me. More on that tomorrow. I'll be making a video about it. Regardless, that was a side note. I've been wanting to make a gay male Honey Badger Radio type of a thing, and I was thinking of doing it with Our Cat's Gay and with Spacepan, and we could maybe call it the Gay Triarchy podcast.
Gay Triarchy, I love it. Yeah, I'm honored to be part of the Homo Trinity, and I will do my best. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I wanted, I was considering doing it with these other guys, but as cool as they are, you and I and Spacepan are really dedicated to, Spacepan's dedicated to just sort of
MRA in general, I think.
Yeah, and you're dedicated to the gay male culture in general, and I don't know, I'm fucking all over the fucking place.
You're pan-cultural.
Pan-cultural, something like that. Yeah, it's hard to even say, but I think
don't try to box me in. I am beyond your definitions. The internet cannot contain me.
Yeah, but no, it's just fine. Whatever. Spacepan, he describes himself in the video as a perennial YouTube lurker, and he's just on the internet a lot and looks for things. I'm largely making a whole bunch of videos regularly, and that's kind of my thing. But
I'm probably the least high octane out of all of you then, because I love making videos. I used to do it a lot when I was in college, but at the end of the day, I'm kind of a weekend warrior because I have my job, and Well,
yeah, he has a job too. I think that the thing, which is why he doesn't really make videos that much. But I think that we could collect articles and things to go over and have kind of an agenda, stick to an actual format, and have some guests. As opposed to
just ranting about penises all the time.
Yeah, and have some guests on and everything. I think it would be fun.
With three gay guys, we'll probably have a lot of just random penis streams. It just seems likely, especially since Spaceman likes to talk about circumcision.
Yeah, and that's a conversation that you guys need to have, because we're on different sides of the circumcision argument fence.
It's gonna be fun.
I'm exactly in the middle. I would say I am on the anti-circumcision side of the argument, but I can totally understand why people would think that it's something that is shouldn't be like top of the list for MRA activism, and it does
Yeah,
seem to be something that Spacepan almost prioritizes as his top priority.
I mean, I think that it's a complicated issue, which it it should be, I guess, resolved in as much as any issue can be resolved. Um, in my personal opinion, no offense to you, Spacepan, if you're watching this or you see this, I really think that out of all the problems that men have, that's in my opinion, it's one of the smallest ones that we should be tackling. I would much rather personally deal with like the male suicide rate than the foreskin. Um, the overhauling divorce and family court. Again, that's me, and it's funny. I sometimes feel funny talking about that also because, again, as a gay man with no children and no involvement with women in that sense, I'm kind of an outsider in that. I feel sort of like a spiritual kinship to MRAs just because I often feel like men are getting the shaft, pun intended, um, just because men are expected to be strong and quiet and just take it. And there's so few people that honestly care about what happens to men.
Yeah.
Um, I have a funny, I wouldn't call it a rule, but a pattern I've noticed myself. So when it comes to homeless people, for instance, I mean, I don't typically give money to homeless people, not because I'm an asshole, but because I just don't think panhandling is particularly effective. I prefer to, contribute to charity groups and shelters when I have the opportunity. But sometimes I just go with my gut, and sometimes I'll give money to people if I feel like particularly if they have animals. I'm a sucker for animals. Um, I actually tend to give money to homeless men more than I tend to give money to homeless women, just because I feel like out of all of them, and I don't have a study for this, but my gut feeling is that like the homeless man is not going to get a fraction of what the homeless woman gets.
Oh yeah.
And there's reasons for that, I suppose, but and who knows? Like, I know that I I'm not exactly like I really despise homeless activists. I feel like they're just trying to enable a population that's deeply dysfunctional and needs help, not just enabling. Um, that's a whole nother subject, and part of my reason for
That's a
having
very complicated. That's a very complicated
it it is,
argument.
and I will admit that I'm a bit biased because I tried to take in a couple of my husband's friends who became homeless.
Oh, that
But
cunt. I've heard
yeah,
about that one guy.
oh well, oh not him. Like that. Oh no, that's another one. Like he was. Well,
Oh,
yeah, he became homeless, but yeah, no, we had actual homeless people, not just some you know anti, not just that guy who was just using me and everyone else. But yeah, I had some people that had become homeless that were living in my garage with the purpose of they were supposed to get out and get their lives together, and they ruined my home. They ruined my. I won't say they ruined my life, but they were. I can definitely understand why people don't want to help homeless people after living with them. There's a certain mentality that comes out amongst people once they've been living on their own outside of convention for a while, where they just forget how to be quote unquote regular people, and it just gets really. Anyway, like I said, it's a whole nother meandering subject. I feel like I feel like there is a way to deal with homelessness, and the way we're doing it now is not even close to effective. But we could do a whole stream about that. Honestly, that would be interesting.
okay.
But yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting loopy. I think
No,
maybe.
it's cool. Yeah. Thanks for coming by. I'm gonna
Oh
save
no,
this
thank
one.
you.
I don't think that I said anything that that I could like I for whatever reason I kept somehow people kept saying things that
Would
made
get
it
you
so
into
that
trouble.
yeah, there's a lot of
Drama and things.
yeah, a lot of eyes on me.
Mm.
Trying to invent lies based
So,
around something
social.
that I allegedly said or something. And I don't remember exactly what the things were, but I feel like it was probably had something to do with those things. But I think that we avoided talking about anything that could be used to be allegedly incriminating against me. Not that it will
So
stop. Not that it will stop them, because they can literally make something out of nothing, and
at
that's
this point, should I just start screaming out random YouTubers' names and racial profanity just to see what it sticks?
yeah. I don't know. Um. It's pretty funny with the drama people. It's I Um, but it's great to have a good positive stream, reminded that there are people who are here to actually use the platform to actually talk, outside of using the platform to use the platform for using the platform itself's purposes.
Use the tube for good, people.
Yeah, it's a communication tool. You can, you know, do stuff with it. You can also amuse yourself. And if you want to do that, I suggest video games and kittens. I
I
think
love
that that's all.
it. I agree. Well, thank you, Prince. It's been delightful. Thank you, people that stayed with us. You have said some very interesting things, and I've been reading you, even if I haven't commented on every single one of you guys. Um, Hopefully, we'll do this again soon.
Yeah, we might have a whole podcast with
Oh,
Spaceman.
that would be
Maybe
so cool.
maybe once a week. Okay, talk to you guys later.
Bye. Are we still there?
It's still